Yes, I'm a medical doctor. I'm based in Cambridge, UK, and I'm currently full-time researching into aging therapies and developing educational content to help people themselves. And I'm also part of the Cambridge University Judge Business School Accelerator program currently, who are helping me develop these educational tools for patients. So, what I'm going to talk about is my framework for how I think about longevity and how I categorize those therapies, which is then very useful to think about what you should think about, what you should think about doing later and at different ages for different demographics and so on. It's very important not to start any of these therapies just without any discussion with your doctor. And especially with calorie restriction, it really can. So you really don't want to start that unless you've spoken to your own medical doctor and ideally a licensed dietitian who can manage that whole process with you as well. Three longevity levels, um, longevity level 1, 2, and 3. So these will be different categories of therapies that people can do, levels of evidence for them for how good they are for your health. So longevity level 1 therapies, they will get you to age 92 to 96 if you start limited and continue them strictly for your whole life. Level 2 therapies they won't get you past age 92 to 96, but they will likely increase your health span during that period and decrease that period of morbidity, that period of bad health in older age, especially after age 80 and 85. Then it's these level 3 therapies that will help you get past, in theory, past age 92, 96, and also in good health. And we can see in this slide here that the price for the level 1 therapies is very cheap. It's mostly diet, exercise, smoking, and so on, which we'll talk about. Level 2 therapies can start getting a bit expensive, up to about £10,000 per year or $15,000. And level 3 therapies, there's really no upper limits to how much they can cost, because what you can do is you can fund the the preclinical or clinical research to do that, and then benefit from that personally yourself as well. So in terms of people that do level 1 therapies, it's actually very small. There's very few people, at least in the US, that even do level 1. So it's about 1 in 300 people in the US in one study that just did these level 1 therapies. So this is longevity level 1, and we'll talk about the study this is based from in the next slide. But essentially, it's 5 things: smoking, exercise, which is body mass index. That's a measure of your weight according to your height, and also alcohol intake. And what they did in this, we'll come back to this slide in a study, was they tracked hundreds of thousands of people for over 30 years in the USA. And as you can see at the top here, it says estimated life expectancy at age 50, according to this expanded low risk score. And the highest scoring people means the healthiest people. So you can see on the left there's female, on the right there's male. And if you have a score of 25 for either female or male, that's the highest score you can get. And that means you're doing all of longevity level 1, as I've called it. And you can see for women, if they have a score of 25, at age 50, they have an estimated life expectancy of 94. And for men, likewise, they have an estimated life expectancy of 93. So going into that a bit more, so one of these components is exercise, but it's very specific types of exercise that count towards this. So exercise can add years and years, according to this study, to your average life expectancy, most of which is healthy as well. But the only thing that counts is moderate or vigorous exercise. And the amount of exercise per week is very important as well. So doing to optimally score to have the highest health score from this study, you'd have to do more than 6 hours moderate exercise per week, moderate or vigorous exercise per week. So what is moderate exercise? We have some examples here on the left-hand side. So brisk walking, cleaning up around the house, slowly bicycling, tennis doubles, and also strength training counts as well. So that's roughly around 1 hour a day, 6 times a week, would put you into the highest scoring group for exercise. Then when it comes to vigorous, it's a little bit different because you have to take into account the other studies as well. So particularly in men, doing lots of vigorous exercise per week may be dangerous, and we'll come into that into the next slide. So the takeaway message from here is over 6 hours moderate exercise a week is what you need for longevity level 1. And you don't really want to do too much vigorous exercise, maybe 2.5 hours maximum per week. And this is a bit of a complex slide, but basically in the bottom half of this table here, and you go to the light jogger row, you see that but then for the moderate jogger, the mortality is not decreased. So and jogging by definition counts as vigorous exercise. So this is an example of how, this is both for men and women actually in this study, how if you're doing more than 2.5 hours vigorous exercise per week, in this case jogging, it can remove the benefits of exercise, and you may have the same mortality risk as someone that is sedentary and a non-jogger. And likewise with strenuous jogger who was doing 50 plus miles per week or so of jogging, which is a lot, was also no different from being sedentary. So something else we can talk about in this longevity level 1 is diet. And this is a table which is on my website, so we're not going to go through it in detail. But basically, this is what's required. These are all very specific things that are required to meet this longevity level 1 criteria and actually benefit from the evidence that's out there to gain health span and lifespan. So we see here on the left, you have to score over 8 out of 10 on the Alternative Healthy Eating Index 2010 version to actually gain these dietary benefits in terms of health span and lifespan. And on the left column here, we see the things that account for this. And in the column next to it, we see how much of those you have to do per day or not do per day in order to meet the requirements from this study. So I'm not going to go through this because it takes a long time, but this will be on my website. So in summary, you can actually gain a lot of years just from these basic longevity level 1 things. So smoking, completely stopping, plus 12 years. Exercise, which is moderate to not too much vigorous, over 6 hours a week, that's plus 8 years, according to this study. Diet that meets that previous table score, plus 5 years. BMI within the lower part of the healthy range, plus 5 years. And alcohol, ideally red wine. It probably wouldn't work if it was, doing shots of vodka each day or other spirits. But yep, alcohol maybe can get you plus 2 years as well. But the evidence is a bit more shaky for that, as there's not enough randomized controlled trials to back it up like the other 4 things in level 1. So that's a lot of years you can gain from level 1, and it's all very cheap. Now, level 2, there's not enough evidence to say that this will increase your health span past 92 to 96, but it's definitely reasonable to say that all of these can increase your health span up to 92 to 96. And again, it's quite complex. This is a lot more complex and potentially more expensive than level 1 stuff. So this includes things like looking for the latest studies for every health problem you have, as often people are getting out-of-date care, which isn't up to date. And there's dozens of new trials which aren't being taken into account by your clinicians because they haven't seen them, because there's so much evidence now they can't keep up. Other things like calorie restriction, as has been mentioned, which I'll talk about a bit in the next slide, and a bunch of other things which are important for improving health span also. So calorie restriction is probably one of the most powerful ones in level 2. There's not enough evidence to say that it will increase lifespan, but whilst there is in rhesus monkeys, but not in humans, but there's definitely evidence to say it is very likely to improve health span in humans. So 2 of the best cases that we have for evidence in human calorie restriction, for long-term calorie restriction as well, is David Fisher is one guy. So he's been doing it for 30 years, and he has a few side effects, and he has some biomarker evidence which shows very promising results. And interestingly, his BMI is actually 21. It's not that low. And I think that's likely because he's eating later in the evening, and weight is partly controlled by when you eat, not just also how much you eat. And this is a picture of Dave in 2019, age 61. The other best case evidence for calorie restriction is Michael Ray, who is, I think, co-founder of the SENS Research Foundation with Aubrey. And this is a picture of Michael in 2019, age 49. And similarly, he's been doing a calorie restriction for around 20 years. And his BMI is much lower, but differently to Dave Fisher, he's doing meals evenly spaced throughout the day. So it's not weighted towards the end of the day. So these are just some basic overviews of what you can expect from calorie restriction after years and years. And these would definitely be good people to speak to as well if you're thinking about taking it up. So that was the only thing I've got time to talk about in level 2, as is you could talk hours. I often talk hours about each component in there. Then level 3, this is how you can get past age 96. So it's arguably theoretically not possible to get past age 96 reliably without using these interventions. So level 1 and level 2 kind of cap out age 96 for 95% of people. So this is basically the stuff that's targeting the fundamental intrinsic aging process. And this is basically a combination of the hallmarks of aging, which came out in 2013 with Maria Blasco and Lopez Otin, and Aubrey de Grey's framework, which came out in, I think, 2007. So this is just a list of the fundamental aging pathologies which build up, and you'll need to target all of them or a lot of them to increase your maximum health span and lifespan. And in theory, it can make everyone biologically age 0 permanently if you keep doing these therapies or have therapies inside your body ongoingly, which will ongoingly remove damage. There's also a few things added in extra there, number 12 and 13, which aren't in those two aging frameworks, which are emergency cryopreservation and advanced emergency medicine and intensive care skills and knowledge. Having those two in there are also important, as they're ways to getting past 96 as well. Insurance plans, so to think. Yes, so these are the two frameworks. So on the right, we have Maria Blasco. On the left, we have Aubrey de Grey. And so basically, there's two types of things in level 3. There's therapies to remove the downstream damage, which is accumulated, or there's therapies to remove the upstream causes of the damage, or to reduce the rate that that's accumulating. So it's important to become familiar with these frameworks, as you cannot get past age 96 reliably without using these therapies. So it's very important to become familiar with them and all the therapies going on. So a little bit about what I'm working on currently. I'm currently working on a project called Longevity School with the Cambridge University Accelerator Program. And these are comprehensive, evidence-based strategies that you can implement or think about implementing into your personal health strategy. And these will cover the level 1, level 2, level 3 therapies. And it's going to be an online course and community, which I'm building, partly through the WhatsApp group, which has been the pilot test for this, which Phil kindly mentioned. So it'd be great if anyone wants to get involved, and they can go to my website on this as well, oliverzolman.com, which will tell you more about me and what I'm working on. Thanks very much. I know it's very short. I normally give much longer talks, so it's hard to pack it all into 10 minutes.